Well, I was gonna say their website and their statisticians are that good. Like I don't know if you guys have perused the Next Pro site, but there's some pretty legit stats that they're keeping, and it's kind of intuitive. Like I was surprised, not really impressed, just surprised. I wasn't really expecting much, but
Well,
they gave us something.
considering how poorly MLS Next was rolled out and how much of a shit show that was for the whole year last year,
Well, I mean,
I
there was literally nothing. We had to keep our own
yeah,
stats.
keep our
Yeah.
own stats. The standings were. I mean, the USSDA website was terrible as well, but the MLS Next website was worse by a lot, which says a lot in every bad way. So yeah, just having like an actual schedule that's up to date is just so far above.
The schedule by itself, right?
Yeah,
Still kind of pissed that we don't have on-demand
replay.
replay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually having game of the weeks as a replay would I could see that happening.
Yeah, I would take it, but I mean that'd be a start at least.
Yeah, the stats are cool. I haven't been here yet.
Yeah.
And it looks like there will be a shop map at some point. Looks like they
Mhm.
didn't do it on this one, but I'm also a little that's one thing I wanted that's like the only thing I wanted to talk about.
I don't know if I trust their lineup formation that they have us in because it doesn't make a lick of sense.
Oh no, and never even
But
it's never right in USL either.
it's almost like they took their best shot but didn't spend more than 5 seconds thinking it through.
We're not. Well, we're live, but we're not. Do you want to be on camera? There you are. See?
Good night.
Night. Oh, can you hand me a beer since you're right there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I'll turn off my camera. I'll hang up the banner I made the other day.
Ooh.
Do it.
Should we do it after? Are you allowed to hang it?
Sure.
He made the dang thing.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you were saving it for another game or
Oh.
a secret or something.
No, it's already been out. But I'll go downstairs. I'll be off mic for a minute.
So I forgot. I need to look up his name. But a guy that lives in Springfield talked to me on the Flyover Footy account. Aaron Scott. Have you talked to Aaron Scott?
I've talked to him. Yeah, I've talked to him a few times. Never met him in person, but I've talked to him.
Oops. He'll get on our Flyover account and DM us sometimes.
Oh, cool.
But he asked a great question. He looked at the stats and he was like, 65% possession sounds really bad. I was like, boy, yes, it does. But like knowing what we're trying to do, that's not that surprising, right?
Who had 65% possession?
Oh, sorry, not possession. Passing accuracy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So, but we're just trying to like get a turnover, get it to the next guy, and then maybe one or two and try to score a goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that probably speaks more to the aggressive types of chances we were taking as opposed to just not being able to find who they were looking for.
Yeah. So then I thought, we should, before we get too crazy, because it does sound terrible, we should look up Red Bull New York's passing percentage, completion percentage. And I just looked it up and it's 69%. So that's not out of whack at all. Not something to worry about. Because of our style, There you are.
Yep, that was I bumped something. That was definitely.
Oh, nice.
You said 69% is what Red Bull New York was?
Yeah. So, 65, 69, that's not too crazy, but their opponent's possession is like 70, or pass percentage is 78%. And we're going to go all over this.
75 for Rochester.
Yeah. So it's really similar,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like we should be satisfied. I mean,
No, but I
that's
think
one thing that I thought was a little bit bad in that game. One of a few things.
that's interesting that it's that much in line though.
It is. Yes. Yes. So we can talk about that. I think we ought to. When Stu gets back, we should just go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I'm getting them put up.
No rush. No rush.
Oh man, plaster walls in the city. Gotta hate them. Well, we'll see how long this thing lasts before it falls down.
While we have a second, I put this microphone on, my good one. If you hear crackling when I'm talking or like really loud noises, let me know and I'll switch them. I was going to get it repaired and I was like, I just redid all my desk. I'm going to try it one more time.
Sounds fine.
So far, so good. And it just comes and goes. So we'll just see.
I should probably ask before because it's only the second time I'm using this, but how does am I sounding okay?
So good. Yes. No, it's really good. I meant to say that. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I'm not even gonna like pretend that doesn't make me feel really good about this purchase.
It sounds great. There's like no echo. Your voice is warm and deep and crisp at the same time. It's good.
All right.
I'm so excited to talk about that game. I'm ready to get nerdy.
We have an actual game to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the lineup. Schneider on the wing, huh?
I think at the very least they swapped Schneider and Ezra. Yeah. And I don't know what's going on with the whole
I think the rest
Akil
is
Watts.
Correct. No, it's right.
Was he really playing like a defensive mid?
Yeah. And he does that sometimes. In preseason he did it a bunch.
Yeah. That makes sense
still,
then. Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought.
No, but still like Schneider didn't play there. But get a message here. Oh, Santi's on his way.
I see a message in here. I don't ever see messages in here. How's that happening?
Oh yeah, look at that. Someone Santiago got on
we clicked the link. You must have clicked the link.
It's on the Facebook video.
That's phenomenal.
I do need to start. I'm gonna have to start a whole new account so I can get.
You can't change the name of the Facebook one.
It just won't let me. I've tried it 5 times.
Such a bummer.
It's ridiculous. Here we go.
Okay.
No comments yet, so we're good. Okay. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
Matt, can you just say a few words here?
Check. This is Matt. Excited to talk about City.
You guys, your levels are almost exactly the same. This is great. I'm going to start recording now. Welcome, everyone, to Flyover Footy. Santi's on his way, but we're going to get started anyway here. We've got a live stream going as usual. Stu, looks like you've got a tasty beverage there. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, it's cranberry juice. I'm
okay. Old. Yes, you are.
That'll do it.
It's full of antioxidants. I'm doing well.
But yeah, talk about the banner. You just hung it up.
Yeah, so I painted a nice checkerboard City 2 little banner for Friday, the home opener. So that's wanted to do something. So I got that and the new Hooligan banner. So if you see those throughout this year, should be at most of the games.
It looks amazing. So yeah, it's pink and blue checkerboard for the podcast listeners with the crest in the middle, the two crest in the middle at that.
That
And
yeah, specify the two crest because it
yeah.
it looks slick. And both the two crest and the Luligan banner that you made appearances on Friday in the March. I think one or both are in the video that City released today.
Yeah, and it's the actual correct colors, so that's nice. That's very
Pantone
nice.
matched.
It looks right.
Yeah, it's the right city red, and the blue is correct, but that's mostly because I just lucked out.
It looks
Uh,
dark, but I'm glad it's right. I like dark blue. Looks
yeah,
good.
just looking at the camera, it's a little bit off, but in person, it's
It's good.
correct. Isn't that how city red always goes, though?
Yeah. Always. I've also, while we're on the subject, looking at this reminds me that, the city doesn't really have a jersey out. And so when I think of right now, when I think of the city jersey, quote, quote, city jersey or kit, I think of the Luligan checkerboard. It's like become like, hey, I saw the pink and blue checkerboard. That's city. Like I'm putting those things together in my mind. I think it's a nice way to start, and maybe yet another hint. Let's stick with the checkers, huh?
And the city is the Luligan one is building off of Purina, obviously, but also what the seat colors will look like in the stadium. So
Oh, yeah, that's true.
there's a lot of synergy going on.
We'll call it synergy. That's good. That's good, Matt. So yeah, Matt's here, of course. Matt, you've had a tough week, right?
Solo parenting, getting ready for a vacation. It's been a long week, but it's been an exciting week. Looking back on what we got to experience this past weekend, we're officially in season now.
I'm not going to take that transition because I want to give you a platform to complain about schedule changing in MLS Next Pro, if you'd like. Now's your time.
I don't know who I was telling Stu. I don't know who I should be mad at. Should I be mad at MLS Next Pro? Should I be mad at the Colorado Rapids? Should I be mad at whatever random college they were going to be playing at this weekend? But I had it all lined up. Going to Colorado this weekend, was going to see the Rapids game at Dick's Sporting Goods on Saturday. Was going to see the City 2 match with a couple friends that we have out there on Sunday. It was going to be a whole thing. It was going to be fantastic. And then suddenly the game just disappears from the schedule. And I heard a rumor that whether it was myself or other people complaining that City got word that there were people traveling for the game, and so they wanted to put something out there for the fans, which is appreciated, that it was officially canceled. So, but I still don't know why it was canceled or postponed now because it's moved to June 8th. But I just want somebody to be upset about. And per Stu's suggestion, I am upset at Stan Kroenke for this one.
Yes.
Yeah, always.
Perfect. Yeah. When in doubt, right?
Yep.
Just in time, Santiago, I just introduced Stuart and Matt, and you just signed on. I'm so glad you've joined us. You're clean shaven. You look very, very nice, sir. But we might need to be your supportive friends tonight. You just witnessed some really terrible things, man.
Yeah. No,
I'm
no
really sorry.
miracles. No miracles tonight for Colombia. So we're out of the World Cup. So I guess I'm looking forward to 2026.
God, it hurts. It hurts me to hear you say that because we've just gone through this too. I think I'm impressed you're here. I seriously, I would be taking it very badly. I'd be very angry.
No, it's fine. I kind of knew it was going to happen. Like we had some hope going into today's game, but it was very chances were very slim. Like Peru wasn't gonna lose or tie at home with a chance to
Yeah.
qualify for the playoffs. So Colombia did this to itself with losing to Peru in January and
Hmm.
all the scoreless ties that they had. So it is what it is, but it's good. I Mario was there, so I had a chance to talk to him a little bit and give him a hug and congratulate him at the end.
Hmm. Yeah, it's probably a little easier for you. The fact that you're in CONMEBOL, this isn't your first go, in your lifetime to not make the
Yeah,
World Cup. So
yeah, I was thinking about that today. Like Colombia basically went 16 years without going to a World Cup. I
Mm.
grew up like rooting for Colombia, and when I was 10, Colombia qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 28 years.
Wow.
And then they qualified for a couple more, and then they went three in a row without going. So kind of used to that. Hopefully it does. Hopefully we don't go 16 years without going to one again.
Hmm.
2026 we'll have more teams, so hopefully it will be enough for Colombia to qualify. We'll see.
Hope so. Rooting for you, man, and again, feeling for you. We won't dwell on it tonight. Let's talk about St. Louis. I mean, we've got some good news, and the first good news that we wanted to definitely rush to. I've been dying to talk about it, and I'm sure you guys have been as well. That 2-0 win against Rochester, New York. What was that? Saturday night? Nope, Friday night. Friday
Friday
night.
night.
Friday.
Friday.
Friday
Goodness,
night.
Yeah.
I was out of town, so I was a little off. I couldn't make it. It hurt me badly, but I did watch it. I watched the broadcast, and it was nice to have Taylor Twellman there. And that's about as much as I'll talk about, because I want to give you guys a chance to talk about the game day experience. Stuart, I want to start with you on this one because, Matt, I'm sure you were in the march as well, but, I want to hear about the march. I want to hear about pregame and what the atmosphere was like there at Herman Stadium.
Well, I can't speak to the pregame very much because I was working on that for a while,
Oh,
and
Ran up to the deadline on that one.
not as bad as most of these that I work on. It was actually dry by the time I brought it over. So the issue was, since there wasn't food at the tailgate, I was wondering where to go. So went to Chipotle, and Chipotle was pretty packed on Grand before, so probably didn't get enough time to move on that. But I got there, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes before the march, and the atmosphere was really good.
Hmm.
Up top, March was great. I don't know, it just felt good to be part of it again.
We'll come right
Derek
back.
Gottman had some smoke that he had stored away for a while. That was the right color, so he got to pop that on the march, and that was pretty cool. But
Cool.
He picked the perfect time to let that thing go. He was holding it. He was like, "Should I try to get it in? Should we? What are we doing here?" And then he just popped it. And I loved his comment afterwards that he was sure he was going to get in trouble for it, but as soon as he popped it, boy, did those cameras just swarm on him.
well, that doesn't mean he wouldn't get in trouble for it. We are
No,
talking
both.
about
Yeah, both could
MLS, who
happen.
does love to slap people on the hand for demonstration of
Mhm.
like fan support, and then also fine them for it.
But also use them in their marketing material.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But he didn't get in trouble. I'm assuming here
No.
yet. Cool, Matt. Why don't you talk about pregame since Stuart didn't quite make it?
Well, first thing I'll plug is a food option. So we got there pretty early, my wife and myself, and per her suggestion, we went to Black Market Eats. I think it's either just Black Market or Black Market Eats. That like sushi burritos.
Oh
And,
yeah, I love
man,
those. Yeah,
so good. There was a spicy tuna that was just to die for, and can't recommend that enough. I think it's over on like Laclede or just north of IKEA.
every
And
time I go to IKEA, I go to Black Market pretty much.
yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it was perfect, and it was easy. Order ahead, pick it up, head straight to Herman.
Nice.
We got there a little bit before 5, so the tailgate officially started at 5:15. We actually bought, set up, and were kind of installing the international flags that you saw at the top of the supporter section. So I thought it would be a cool idea to have international flags representing the home countries of every single one of our players. So we ended up with 7 total, and I almost missed one. Real quick aside, that app update that they made this past week, last week, that included all of the roster and schedule and everything, that had an extra home country that had not been advertised, and I think it was Vitor Diaz, who
Mhm.
they advertised on the app as from Mexico City, Mexico,
Oh.
and on the website he was from Minnesota. So 2 days before the match, I had to buy myself a Mexico flag, and it arrived the day that we played El Tree, which was real awkward, but all's well that ends well. That worked out. So
True.
so the tailgate kind of started right when it was advertised, 5:15. People were just showing up. They were excited. You had the Luligan merch tent. You had, or not tent, but the merch stand. You had music blasting. They couldn't get the actual tailgate in there because of the height restrictions of the parking garage, but everything was just a big party. And um, by the time we got back from installing the flags in the stadium ahead of time, it was just there were looked like hundreds of people up there, and it was everything I think you had hoped it was going to be, with all of like the pent up excitement, the just first game, home opener, league opener. There were different groups handing out like stickers, like the punks and the no nap ultras. All these different groups that have spun up and stuff. And they were, I mean, it was, everybody was just getting to know each other. I was just introducing myself to random people, some of whom were like, here's my social media handle. And it was kind of like an interesting in-person introduction where you've talked to them online before. And this was that first opportunity to really get to know and get to see everybody. So it was unique. It was exciting, and it made the time go by so incredibly fast. I felt like the tailgate started and ended just in a matter of minutes with how many people were there, how exciting it was, what the atmosphere was like. I did think it was cool too. During the tailgate, Michelle and I went over to install those flags in the stadium. We were there before Caleb let us in with the drummers to put those in, and that line had already formed. There was a line at least 30 people long waiting to get in right at the gate start, like 5:15, and you could see that it was all kind of like everybody was figuring it out. The team was figuring out, what the best operation is here. Fans were already just completely excited, and they just poured in, and it just didn't stop. It seemed when they opened those gates. So it was almost surreal. Like, we come from St. Louis FC and seeing different MLS clubs and USL all over the place, and it just seemed like there was a different level to the atmosphere and to the excitement that I can't really recall, maybe outside of the Open Cup runs we had from St. Louis FC or the 2019 playoff push. But it just, I mean, there was something about it that it really seemed special. And I really hope, and I think we can keep that kind of excitement going. I don't know if we're going to sell out again, but I think that level of excitement spurred on by the win and the style of play that we're playing, we'll get to in a little bit. That just carried everybody through the entire thing. And so, yeah, the pre-match stuff in particular was, I just look back on it with the fondest of memories. It was amazing. I can't wait to do that again in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Santiago, I want to hear what your day was like. I know you were doing the Spanish language broadcast with Leader Sports, which is really awesome. So I didn't know what you were up to during the game and before.
Yeah, so I got there like really early, and I had a plan to basically get everything ready for the Spanish broadcast, and then stop by the tailgate, meet some people. Um, I even talked my wife into going to the game. So the plan was to
Nice.
have her stop by the tailgate and meet you guys. But unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. So we got really early to a stadium, like around 4:35, and we had some issues, some technical issues. So basically we were trying to take care of all of that,
Hmm.
and at the end I couldn't make it to a tailgate, and we were able to do a Spanish broadcast, but had some issues with internet connectivity. So unfortunately, we wanted to put out like the Spanish call of the first goal, but due to some issues with the internet, it didn't, like, it kind of got caught in the middle, so nothing good came out of it. But we'll resolve some of the. We'll be able to resolve those issues for the next game, assuming we're able to do it. I don't know if you know, but like MLS Next Pro kind of wanted to have their own thing, and my understanding is that there may not be any more opportunities for broadcast, but we'll see. We'll continue
Mm.
talking to CDSC to see if we will be able to do other games. But back to Matt's comment, really exciting atmosphere. Like it just thinking about previous St. Louis FC games, it reminded me a lot of when St. Louis FC played Chicago Fire in the US Open Cup, like a
Mhm.
full stadium, and as Matt was saying, like people in line like really early. Like it was a great atmosphere, and it was great to see like everywhere I look I saw people wearing a scarf or a t-shirt or a hat, and it was great to see everybody in city red colors. So I'm looking forward to more games. One thing that may help for maybe another sellout or another game with a lot of people is that the team is not playing this weekend, and the next game is another home game. So you won, and then your next game is a home game. It's a perfect combination. So we may see another game with a great atmosphere.
Yeah, I am super curious. I know, Matt, you mentioned that too about will we sell out the next one? Who knows? I know for a fact I'm buying my tickets like tomorrow to make sure I got them for this next game. But it sounds like so on the broadcast I was watching, it wasn't that loud. And, that's all up to the miking and stuff like that. So I was dying to ask you guys how it compared to St. Louis FC games. You guys are basically, it sounds like you're saying it was as good or better than that Open Cup game. It was loud. It was crazy. It was good.
I thought it was real loud. I mean,
Awesome.
so the supporters section where it was two sections, um, close to midfield, I think, closer to midfield than it was the end line, that's for sure. But the drums were right in front of one section, and like Stu and myself were right in front of the section next to it, and it was, I mean, incredibly loud from where we were. I would assume that it was that loud elsewhere, and it felt like, and it could just be recency bias, but it felt like every bit as loud as it was in those best St. Louis FC games that we had.
Nice.
Yeah, obviously I was doing the broadcast, but every time I had a chance, like to take a pause and kind of see what was going on, like all I could hear was the Luligans cheering.
Mhm.
So that was great.
That's awesome.
Shout out to the new. I mean, I know that This Is Silly has their own supporters podcast, but shout out to the new folks who weren't around or at least weren't prominent for the St. Louis FC days. I know there were at least one or two of the guys doing the capoing who came up from Austin FC, and they were involved in some of the supporter groups down there. Took what they learned down there, and now they're doing it for us. And like Clayton and Austin, those guys, they were
Yeah.
killing it. And it was great to meet them, and they were just constantly at it. So I think that bodes extremely well for what the atmosphere is going to be like going forward.
When you say they were hanging out with Austin FC, what brought them here? Like, and I guess, are they joining the Luligans as capos or?
Clayton is originally from St. Louis, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he lived in Austin for a while. Didn't he live in another MLS city?
I just know about Austin.
I don't know. He was at one of or a couple of the preseason games
Hmm.
at Grief Court Park. Real nice guy, but yeah, he killed it. He was awesome as capoing.
That's great. I mean, it's a hard job, I think.
And the drummers too. I mean, yeah, that and knowing what they're doing, it again, I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but it bodes really well going forward for the atmosphere that they're going to bring, because it's something that is able to be consistent. It wasn't just a one-off.
Mm-hmm. That's great. While we're talking about atmosphere, let's go ahead and talk about the first goal, right? And the game kicked off, and you could tell. I don't know if you guys heard this, but in the broadcast, they mentioned how Rochester had only been training for like a week, maybe 4 days. I don't know if I heard that wrong. I don't want, I get things wrong a lot. So, but not long, right? Way behind us as far as like getting their stuff together and playing together. So it definitely started with us really kind of controlling the game, and ended, we ended up getting that Kuzain goal off of a corner kick. Which wasn't terribly surprising if you know the kind of game that Kuzain can play and some of the things that happened in preseason. So let's talk about that Kuzain goal, the first one in MLS Next Pro history. first one in STL City 2 real season history. Massive, and it's awesome that it's a St. Louis boy, right?
I think it's perfect. Was it a corner kick or was it a free kick
It
from?
was
I
a
think it was a
free
free
kick.
kick.
Yeah, it
So I
was a
thought
free
that.
kick.
Because I thought the same thing honestly too, and I was watching replays because like you made a comment, Phil, about if you're watching the broadcast, and so here's my one time I'm going to say this: no, I wasn't watching the damn broadcast because they don't have on-demand replays available. So MLS Next Pro or anybody from City who has Sway, can we get those up, please? Because I would be desperate to watch that.
And it was in the 20th minute. I had to pull
Yep.
this back up.
And honestly, it looked like a shot on goal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Schneider's it was almost a shot as opposed to a cross.
It hit the post.
Oh, it hit the post.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
It looked
Yeah.
like I could have swore it hit the keeper, but you were obviously had the vantage point,
Yeah.
and then it just kind of bounced into open space there where Kuzain was just,
Kuzain, yeah.
I mean, perfectly in the right spot.
Yeah, I think it may have been the post and the keeper, that like combination of both, but it definitely hit the post.
That's
Wow.
crazy. So yeah, I mean, Kuzain, it's like he's money from that area. It's just like plan on it, right? It's going to be on goal at the very least, and he put some spice on it too. So it was really nice to see that go in, and again that it was Kuzain. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it now. Like, oh, you guys didn't get to see it. So on the broadcast, maybe it's good that I missed the game. I saw a lot of cool stuff. At the end, it was Susanna Collins did an interview with Kuzain, and she's like, how big is this for you? You are a hometown boy.
Yep.
They did get it right that he grew up in Collinsville outside St. Louis. So they did like get it right. And she's like, how big is it for you to score the first goal for St. Louis? And I have been big on like, Kuzain doesn't show much emotion. And I've been starting to question just for that alone. It's not a good reason, but for that alone, I was like, is this dude even like, is he burned out on soccer? Does he even really care? Dude was so animated. He was so happy. And I'm sure you guys probably got to see that he went into the stands with his friends and his family. And he was just so excited that he scored the first goal for City 2, and that he was in front of his family and he's playing pro soccer in St. Louis. It's just like, he was so happy, and it was really cool to see. So that was nice to see on the broadcast. Great interview from Susanna, of course, on the sidelines. That's the other thing. If you want to talk about the broadcast, that they had Susanna Collins. They had Poppy Miller on the sidelines. Both those ladies, and then Taylor Twellman in the booth with the play-by-play guy. I'm sorry I didn't get his name. So that was really cool, and they did a good job. And it was nice to hear Taylor talking about St. Louis things and doing as good a job as he always does. So that's the side of things. If you missed the broadcast, it really was very good. Maybe we'll get lucky. And let's talk about this now, actually, before we do the next goal. How come we don't have a replay on MLS Next Pro? This is unacceptable, right?
Well, yeah, it's definitely unacceptable. But I think MLS really pulled out all the stops for Friday's game. This is definitely probably their. I mean, they planned well to have this be their first game, and the sellout crowd that absolutely reinforced their decision on that. But I sent you guys a link to a article from Sounder at Heart that Jeremiah Oshan wrote today. That was just talking about how some of the other broadcasts were on MLS Next Pro this week, and apparently a lot of the broadcasts were using AI tracking cameras, which were a mess apparently. So
I saw some highlights and I wondered what the hell was going on.
Isn't that the same stuff they use at Creve Coeur? Like not that it's bad, but
yeah, a lot of scouting. I think scouting and academies use that technology as far as I know.
Yeah, it may not be the same product, but yeah, it's similar to that, Matt. And Stuart, I was reading that article on my way home. Since I was really sad, I was like, oh, I have to find some therapy. So I was reading the article. Yeah, and it looks like over time it's supposed to get better since it's AI based. So hopefully we'll see some improvement on that.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. The dichotomy between the game of the week, which had Taylor Twellman, Poppy Miller, Susanna Collins, and multiple live cameramen going around the stadium, and that was fantastic. And the Tacoma Defiance match where some passes weren't even getting tracked in the midfield because the motion tracker wasn't picking them up. So definitely some improvement there for MLS, but no complaints, of course, other than no replay for us. But
Yeah.
hopefully that's stored on servers somewhere that'll be released, like
Mhm.
something coming out of the Disney Vault.
You know they have it available, but at the same time, so that brings up an interesting point. Do you think the reason that they don't have them available is because of the low quality for 99% of the games?
That could be part of it. Yeah.
So I didn't even take into consideration just how poor quality everything besides our game was. Not looking forward to away matches when we're not the game of the
Yeah.
week now, but that conspiracy theory part of me maybe says that they know how bad of quality and how it's taking a while for the AI to catch up to what will be presentable and replayable. So maybe it's purposeful that they're not releasing them yet. But the only other thing I will give them credit for is the website, the stats, the highlights. Again, it could be because we were the game of the week, but I was able to go back and look at highlights for our 2 goals. MLS Next put together a video package similar to what City put out today. It was a few minutes long. It focused on the entire game day. It's really high quality that they have out there. Kind of a look back at like the opener game of the week type thing. So it could bode well for future games of the week. But I did enjoy the ability to go back and kind of analyze the stats of everything, and really see, not just a visual representation of the starting lineup, but goals, XG, XA, like all of those things, and really see. It's funny what they gave for Juan Kuzain as far as XG for his shot. Those kinds of things you were able to see if you wanted to look that deep into what they were providing, which I did appreciate that, even though I really would have appreciated the full game replay.
Yeah, I didn't look at the stats for the players. Because I did miss XG. I didn't see it in here, but I guess I need to click on this players tab. I agree with you. The stats page are very good. Oh yeah, really good stuff in the players tab. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, they
0.19 XG for Juan Kuzain, and it's
For his
just,
one shot on target, yeah.
hey, it's the way it is. It's not perfect, but it
Well,
is
and
a stat.
it's like what we've talked about, Phil, of XG is fun to look at, and then assuming that they keep these up and allow us to track them over time, you're going to get to a point here in about a month or two where we can actually start to trend and talk about what players are actually having success with their XG compared to missing shots that they have high XG on, which kind of
Mhm.
lets us analyze a little further. So there's a lot of work that we can do and fun we can have with what they're providing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something that they should be proud of. This is good work here. And we are being a little negative on the other stuff, but we got to show that other side as well. So it looks like our XG was, I'm not adding it up quickly enough in my head while I talk, but below 2. So the fact that we got 2 goals as far as XG is concerned, it's a good thing for the day. And it
Well,
looks
that's
like, go ahead.
probably a good segue into our second goal, because
Yeah.
the player who scored that kind of raised our XG up quite a bit.
Yeah, 0.79 on that one. So without the, I guess that's about accurate too. Like, about 80% of the time you score a penalty. So there you go. Vitor Diaz. Now, Santi, do you remember how, I'm forgetting already how the penalty was called exactly?
Yeah, it was. If I remember correctly, it was a long pass from, I think it was from Darling to Diaz,
Yes, you're
and
right.
Diaz was in the penalty box. He basically he passed the keeper, and the keeper, when he tried to get the ball, basically he got Diaz's feet, and that was it.
And I
Penalty kick.
think, didn't Doling intercept a pass too
I believe it
to
was a
start that
turnover.
run?
Yes. And that pass, you rarely see a striker put a pass like that, in behind with that kind of a touch. That was
Yeah,
some good work. It's
Well,
beautiful.
that's one place where the highlight really helped, because it included Twellman's analysis of it, and I really liked
Ah,
how he called um, uh, Doling had the ball, and instead of making a quick run, he purposefully slowed down to give Diaz enough time to stretch
absolutely.
the field. And as he's about to get past the last defender, Doling flicked it off in front of him, and it was perfectly placed to where he'd either have a shot or the goalkeeper had to commit himself to that, and obviously he committed himself to the foul.
Yeah, another cool thing that Taylor was able to interview the coaches, obviously, about certain things. And, something we noticed in preseason was that Doling is doing a lot of like target forward work where he wants to lay it off for someone else, right? But I guess City's been really pressing him to learn and more often push in behind. And so that's something to look for. He did it a lot early in the game. And then, we saw a lot of target work outside of that because it's what he's best at. He's really good, but they are wanting him to run on and clear some space in behind every once in a while. So that's really cool. And he did get a ball from Diaz or Kuzain, where he was running on. So, it is starting to happen.
It reminded me of the MSU game, again, recency bias, but that one of those last tune-up games where more often than not, Doling was finding himself over on the right side in the corner, being given a ball that he was kind of able to work himself. He wasn't like the find a guy in the box and hope he heads it in type of a guy. He was making plays out there on the corner, and he was kind of facilitating some of the attacking mids, and Kuzain got a goal in that MSU game because of that. And so it kind of, I could see that being carried forward into the season with that kind of a pass.
Yeah, and Doling had the second touch before the free kick that set up the first goal, right? He laid it off to Diaz or Martins, was the one who got fouled to set up the free kick. I think that's how it was.
Oh, nice.
Must have been Diaz at that point. Martinez came in later, but still.
Yeah, I think it was Diaz. I was gonna say like that combination of Doling, Kuzain, and Diaz, like it's really dangerous. Like they can create chances, and they had like 3 or 4 plays where they look really good, like passing it to each other and creating a space. That's something I really liked.
Me too. And that's not even, we were talking about some stats. I think we'll get to that in a second, but it was really cool to see those three especially kind of work together. There was something, the last thing I wanted to say was in the broadcast, they slowed it down and did a replay a couple times. And I'm pretty sure Diaz did not get touched. That I think he did.
Really?
Yeah. I'm bad at that. But the fact that Taylor was like, let's take a look here. I'm not sure he got him. It's hard to tell. He kind of backed off, but it looked like Diaz went down without being touched. But it was, even in slow motion, it was almost impossible to tell.
Yeah, that's funny because I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, this is a penalty. And Hector, my co-host, he was like, no, that wasn't a penalty. He sold it well, but it wasn't.
He's got good eyes. I never catch that kind of thing.
The Rochester fans that were there were 3 that made the trip. After the match, they were like, that was a really soft penalty. And Rochester actually had I think Hebert had a tackle in the box
early.
I thought Hebert was amazing. Hebert had an awesome game. But he had it would have been a really soft penalty for Rochester, but they were saying, well, if you call the one on DS, you should call the one on.
That's fair.
But as early as the Hebert one was, I feel like the ref just didn't want to make that call so early, because that was like 10 minutes in, if that.
Yeah, that was pretty early on. And actually,
really early.
I'm trying to look up who the Matthew Thompson was the official. And Matt and I were talking during the game that we were assuming, considering they MLS went all out on everything, that the officials were MLS officials. But
he did the USL championship game this last year, and he won referee of the year. That was in the broadcast as well. So dude is good.
But at least they did get like a high quality proven ref.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was cool. I wanted to make sure we covered that because I thought it was kind of interesting. Something to look for if we do get to rewatch that. I'll be watching that clip for sure in slow motion again. I think now we got to get to the bad part of the game, right? I mean, there were moments where Rochester really clawed back and they figured out how to play us. I guess that's one thing to talk about, is that they are the only independent side and they are the oldest team in the league by far, I think. And I think that veteran presence kind of showed itself, that they were able to kind of figure us out. And we're not that young either, but they were able to kind of figure us out throughout the game and make some plays with their special players. There were about 2 or 3 that could really do some special things. And they got some shots off. I thought they did better than I would have liked to see, I guess, is what I will say about that. They didn't, you look at the stats, I think they got 2 shots, right? 0 on goal.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right, but that is true. That's what it says. 3 shots, 0 on goal. So we handled them very nicely, but they had more chances than I thought they should get. But like I said, they're veterans. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but we're leading to a red card here, right? So maybe we can start working our way toward that.
Well, so I remember thinking during the match how it seemed like they were trying to focus on almost breaking our press. So we were swarming quite a bit when they had the ball. We were attacking on defense, and it just seemed like, and I think the stats back this up quite well with their passing accuracy and their number of passes, where they were making a lot of short, quick passes, trying to create space, trying to move the ball around the pitch, not necessarily up the field, just to get away from us. And I think that's where you start leading into when they did have success at creating the space. In particular, the red card came into play, or the second yellow rather, because an outstretched pass, Rochester had success in creating space out on the right side. And as one of their players went to make that turn towards midfield, he was tripped up by Ezra.
Yeah. Well, and before that, we have to mention that there was this weird situation. It was after the second goal that he got this yellow. And it was like the ball was being tossed to someone for a throw in or something like that. And he just launched it. He kicked it. And so he got a yellow, I assume for time wasting. I'm not sure exactly what they would call that other than that. So he got a yellow, a really idiotic yellow. I mean, he launched it with his foot. There was no reason for it. Maybe he hit it harder on accident. I don't know, but it was an obvious, stupid yellow that he got. And then he was put in a difficult position. He had to make that tactical foul, and he already had a yellow. So I'm going to say rookie mistake for you, Ezra, who is one of my favorite players in preseason. Really made a massive mistake in that first game. And we had to learn. Maybe it was good practice, right? We had 2 goals. It's kind of good timing if he's ever going to do it. A good practice for 10 men on the field and them trying to figure out how to press, which looked really interesting with 10 men for a minute. I think they were all confused. But we do have to say that, Ezra making a bit of a rookie mistake in his first game there. Yeah.
Yeah, so MLS Next Pro, I assume he's going to be suspended for the next match.
Yeah.
Safe assumption, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we won't see him at home. It would be kind of nice if that would have been the Colorado game and he would come back for the next home game. But
yeah,
but he
Damn you,
will be
Kroenke.
eligible for the Open Cup.
Damn you, Kroenke. I like that. The other thing I want to say about, so I think I've always missed the games where Ezra plays forward as in this case, I think he was like a left attacking mid. I don't like him there. I just don't. And maybe Rochester handled him well. I don't know. But something I've realized after watching this game is if we play Kuzain in an attacking role and Diaz, who's not slow at least, but Kuzain's not a burner. So I think they're worried about, and neither Doling's not fast. He's not slow either, but it's interesting that I think they might be playing Ezra as a veteran presence up high, who is a straight line speed kind of guy. He might be one of our few straight line speed kind of players. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what you guys think about this, but this was my first thought when I thought Ezra's obviously a natural wing back. I like him as wing back, as a left back. But I don't like him forward, but maybe he's up there for speed because we do need more speed. We don't have a ton of speed if it's not an academy kid, I don't think. Now, I haven't timed Pompeo Martins. I haven't timed Diaz. I don't know who else might be in that category in your guys' opinion. But anyway, that was one thought I had about Ezra playing forward.
Before looking at on the field, it just seems odd. City touts him as a defender. He's played his career as a defender.
Yeah.
They're touting Kwame Awoye as a midfielder, yet it was obvious that Kwame started as left back and Ezra as a left mid. And the best thing, speed is likely the answer because we seem to really fall in love with those overlapping runs between our fullbacks and our outside mids. Kuzain and Watts or DeRosa were having some success at that on the right hand side, and I saw some fan reactions too where they were absolutely loving what DeRosa was doing on the right hand side with those overlapping runs. And I know Kwame had done that in preseason when those two started in that position. So it's not like Ezra hasn't been playing this position, because it seems like that's where Hackworth or Lutz or whoever has identified him as best. It almost reads to me like it's a system placement as opposed to where his history is.
Yeah.
So they want Kwame on the field. They want Ezra on the field. Whether they just mesh well in those roles and Ezra's speed just plays well as an attacking position, I don't know, but it definitely seems like it's in this system, Ezra matches up better as the left mid.
So it's really interesting. Akil Watts is also normally a right back, and Ezra is normally a left back. So we're almost playing where we do 5 at the back, except we're playing 4 defenders and then 2 wing backs. It's just kind of a interesting formation, or at least as far as where they're most comfortable historically with their positions.
I will say in this one, it was Akil Watts. I know he does shift a lot, and he does cover as a center back and a fullback a lot. But he was playing as a center defensive mid alongside Schneider in this one. So that's why he was getting forward, but he was central quite a bit, even though he covered a lot defensively. So yeah, we did play with 4 in the back, and that's what I'll say about this game as a positive. I don't think I'm even spinning this. I'd say our best quality in this game and in preseason, especially as we got better, was that we're just hard to play against. And that's something that Lutz has said in the past, that, like teams are going to hate playing us because if we can't play an attacking style, even like we weren't meshing massively. We had awesome points in the game, attacking wise, stuff that was fun to watch. But we had a very conservative setup, I'd say. If we're going to put DeRosa on the right back spot and we're going to put Kwame at the left back spot, that means Ezra is like a defensive forward in some ways, which in a pressing team, that's not abnormal. It's not weird, but we were hard to play against. And I think that setup served us well against Rochester, that we had a very defensive back line. It wasn't a burner fullback setup. We were just going to be hard to get past. And we were in that game. Not only was our press nice, we were ballsy in the midfield, right? Schneider was just, showing what he can do physically. And of course the free kick as well. So I don't want to go on too long, just to kind of reinforce that we are hard to play against already. That is something that is a quality that is St. Louis City SC. And I like it. I love it.
Well, to me, a lot of it goes back to our 2 center backs are 2 of the most reliable and just quick people on the field. Hebert and Yarrow were the reason, and we had talked about it in preseason. They're the reason that we were able to push up so high and still have success in our defense, because they're the 2 who, if you watched when we were on the left hand side moving forward, they were shifting over to the left hand side to the point where DeRosa looked like he was playing a right center back role.
Yeah,
and having those 2 in that consistent area where one of them at all times was in the mid and the other was helping out over on the where the ball side was, it just seemed like it worked so well. And they had, like, if you look at the stats, honestly, when we're on offense, those 2, along with Schneider and I think Diaz, had some of the highest passing accuracy rates on our team. So they were safe with the ball. They were consistent with the ball. And when we were on defense, it was pretty obvious that Schneider, Hebert, and Yarrow were kind of like the big men on campus. Like, they were the ones who were, Schneider was always constantly attacking the ball, and he was everywhere, it seemed. And Hebert and Yarrow made sure absolutely nothing got through. I give them a ton of credit on the fact that Rochester had no shots on goal.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that in the preseason too. So just like the last thing I can say on that, without continuing to go on with those 2, is just there's no surprise to me in seeing that, because they were the tandem the entire preseason when we were kind of expecting who's going to start. And I think that time together in preseason has allowed them both to gel very well together.
Completely agree. They were almost always on the field together, right? No matter what formation, they were both on the field together quite often. And I've also, I love the last thing I'll say is that in the way that we set up, sometimes we play in a 3-back in preseason, and I'm sure we'll see it during the regular season. But we had DeRosa has played an outside center back position. Yarrow has played center back on 2 positions. We've seen Hebert play left-sided center back in 3 and 2. We've seen Kwame play left-sided center back and left wing back. And we've seen Watts play right back, right wing back, and right-sided center back. So we've got 5 players who have played center back or an outside defensive role. And one thing I noticed was any one of them could. I think what happened was like their striker dropped in, or maybe they kicked a long, quick counter ball to their central mid. I don't know what happened, but Yarrow was way up the field. And I think it's because they lobbed a ball to someone and he was like, I got to get to that guy. And he just ran forward, put pressure on him when he got the ball. And then all of a sudden I saw like Akil Watts as a center back, or, we saw DeRosa scooting over. And these 3, any combination of 3 or 4 could play that back line if one just goes forward like that. And I just love that it looked very natural. I don't even know if it was planned, but those guys all have the capability to mesh well together and cover for each other. I like that. That's fun.
Well, it reminds me a lot of what you see with Tyler Adams on the national team, where because he's so versatile and he can play that position very well, you can have flexibility with where your defenders are on the field. And so if you're having your central defenders up front, as opposed to or your fullbacks who are making runs on the sides, you can have one of your defending mids cover that position. So you have Schneider and you had Watts who were that position on Friday. Both of them were doing that job where they were tracking back and they were covering for whoever needed it on the back line. So that level of flexibility. And I expect, as we talk about, or as we think through who might be starting or getting time in the next few games, I expect Palazzolo to also slot into one of those positions as well. So I think that provides us a lot of depth when you think of who can cover when you've got fullbacks moving up, when you have your center backs making those runs. I mean, we just have so many options available to us.
Yeah. The flexibility is insane with this team. And that's been fun to watch. We should finish up with the game. Any last thoughts about the game? Or if we want to talk about what happened after the game, I'd be curious what the atmosphere was like after the game as well.
So obviously a lot of players that stood out, and Matt already alluded a little bit to it, but I really like what I saw from Snyder. Like his presence and his intensity, the way he went for every ball. Like I really like him, and yeah, like obviously he's a defensive mid, and sometimes you don't see all those things that they do, but I really like what he did and the way he played.
Completely agree. Stuart, what were you going to say?
Just for me, I said before, Hebert, I really liked what he brought. Also, I mean, I think Kuzain was my man of the match, but Diaz was really close behind as well. And it wouldn't surprise me if AJ slides in and partners with Schneider in the midfield going forward in one of the next couple of games. But if they want to keep going with Watts in the midfield instead, but AJ and Schneider looked so good together in the preseason when they were paired up that it just seems like they would be continuing that on.
I'm thinking back to those preseason matches and remember how Schneider, I don't want to say disappeared, but we couldn't find him on the field for a little while. He might have been his haircut, because at some point he got a massive haircut.
Cut his hair off.
But it also kind of coincided, I believe, with Ben DeRosa signing or coming on board and starting to get minutes. And he's another player who he played the full 90, super impressive. And looking at his resume, drafted in the super draft by NYCFC in 2021, playing 20 games with Charleston Battery. I mean, he's got the resume, and it seems like he has the trust of the coaches. One of only 5 or 6 players to play the full 90. So when you're looking at who's going to get these minutes at our fullback positions, between, and we just talked about the depth at defensive mid, but at the same point, our fullbacks, Ezra could play it. Phil, you listed him off. You now have DeRosa out there who it might just be his position at right back. And so where does Akil slot in when you have Palazzolo and you have Schneider? I think there's a lot of rotation that's going to happen because of that.
I agree. Speaking of rotation, let's just talk about the subs quickly. Celio Martins came in the 63rd minute. Just nothing but sauce for the rest of the game. What a cool super sub, right? Like that dude's going to score some goals or at least cause some problems for defenses, whether he starts or whether he subs in. That's pretty cool. AJ Palazzolo came in for Diaz in the 72nd minute for a bit of a more defensive look. And,
and that was the first, that was the first sub after the red card, I believe.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Good call there. So yeah, we did go to like a 4-4-1 when we had 10 men on the field, and that was him slotting in. Again, people moved over into weird spots, but it wasn't that weird because they've done them all before. Speaking of weird, Fritz Volmar came in the 88th minute and played left mid for the rest of the game. And one thing I had to say is that immediately he became what I said, the swarmiest player on the pitch, because dude was just buzzing, like running his butt off as hard and as fast as he could. And there's just a difference between those academy kids and the veterans. It's just a difference. There is. And I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm not going to make an opinion there, but I enjoyed watching Volmar run his butt off in that game. It was cool.
Yeah. Also first academy player, debuting for St. Louis City too. Yep.
Well done. Yeah. Got to remember
it was such a low risk kind of, well, not really a low risk, but it was such a perfect opportunity to get him a few minutes where you just needed to shut the door and you needed to make Rochester as uncomfortable as possible. You knew he would come in with the fire and with the energy and the excitement. You knew what it meant to him. You knew he was proving himself at one point because he is the first academy player, the first amateur. And I think that what you said his role was, Phil, just to make them uncomfortable and swarm out there on the left side. I think it turns out it was a pretty perfect substitution at that point.
He had a couple 1v1s in that short amount of time, and he handled himself very nicely. And you mentioned low pressure. No, not low pressure. No, you're right. It's not low pressure because it's 10 men on the field. It's just a 2-0 lead. And these guys showed that they were dangerous. So we put on an academy player at left mid, a position he doesn't play very often. That's trust right there. That's awesome.
Shows you how much of a park the bus situation we were in at that point, where you sent one of our academy center backs in at left mid.
I loved it. Stats wise, there was one more thing. I'm going to get his name wrong if I don't look it up again. Aaron Scott. I talk to him on DMs every once in a while, and he mentioned something that was interesting, that we had 65% possession, not possession. I keep saying that, pass completion percentage in this game, and that sounds very low. And he said that to me. I was like, wait, that's terrible. Are we bad at passing? And I would say we weren't amazing in this game. But then my next thought was, well, I've never really looked at stats for a pressing team and what it looks like. And so I said to him, well, why don't we look up New York Red Bulls passing percentage completion? And in 2022 so far, they're at 69%. And that's only 5% more than us. So, and then Rochester had like 72%, and their opponents average is 78% for New York Red Bulls. So less, yes, in both categories, but it's the proportion is there. I would say 65 and 69, like that may be what we're looking at for the rest of the season. And so we shouldn't freak out about that, but it was very strange to me. And I do think it's okay for us to be like, yeah, I'd like to see that go up. But, I was just thinking about it and I was like, we're a pressing team. We're not looking to get 13 passes to confuse people. We're looking for a turnover, a pass, and then maybe one or two more for a goal if we need them. You know what I mean? And it's an aggressive move. It's an aggressive, quick pass, and it doesn't always end up being accurate every time. So those are my thoughts on that. I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that before we move on.
Yeah, it makes sense for a team that is pressing and trying to make quick transitions. Like, yeah, obviously there will be some mistakes, but yeah, if you're trying to attack quickly and surprise the opponent, that will happen.
Absolutely. Post game, any thoughts?
Well, I think one last thought on that is I think it's important to keep in mind when you're pressing like that and when you're trying to make quick passes and not possess the ball for very long, The antithesis of that is what happens if that doesn't work. So the 30+% of the time that our passes didn't work out, you swarm, you put the pressure back on them. So it goes back into the other side of the mindset, and you see the other side of the coin play out, where we're putting the pressure on them, which leads into how I view a lot of their higher passing percentages working out, which is making short passes to try to break the press, to try to get out of it. And what I was saying earlier of the quantity and percentage of their passes is more indicative of the fact that they were being pressured by us, making short passes, trying to create space and trying to do something. Maybe after we turn it over, maybe after we have a pass that goes awry. But I think by putting those two things together, taking chances, trying to make things happen quickly in a press, and then almost counter pressing and swarming the player who gets the ball next, as long as you can keep up that intensity, it works. And I think that's where we're going to see some rotation and guys, especially who run the field and in those roles, our defensive mids, our attacking mids. You're going to see some rotation because they're going to burn themselves out rather quickly, meaning 60, 70 minutes doing that, because that is a very physically intensive role that a majority of our team is being asked to do to make all of that work.
Yeah, we should be using 5 subs every single game, right? All 5, Barnsley style, right?
We've got the depth. Let's do it.
Yeah, love that. I do want to hear about post game. It was cool to watch the excitement after the game and everyone just kind of celebrate. It was just like a feeling of celebration. Like, finally, this has happened. Like we're on our way to MLS, and this is just like the final stride, big long stride before we get to start that. And it just felt like a really cool environment. I'm sure you guys were all kind of hanging out, feeling pretty good with your friends after the game.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It was great that the team came over. Actually, I think Santi, you might have noticed this also. I think it was Suzanne Collins and Poppy Miller were in the midfield, and the players kind of, I think they were going to wanted to approach players to interview them, but the team walked past them to go to the fans on the sideline.
I saw that. Yeah.
So I don't know if wires got crossed there or expectations or what, but it's always cool when the players come over and seeing a lot of the kids go up to the boards. And that was incredible, just seeing the amount of kids in front of the stands who were just walking up, or during the game they were chanting, cheering, but they were right on the action. And there are probably a few lifelong fans that were made on Friday. So I love the handshake line. Whenever kids can get in there, I was in there for part of it, and obviously I'm not a kid, but if your kids are at the game, get them in there.
That's right.
If they're being forced out and big people are taking their spot, just give them a tap, and kids should get priority on that kind of thing. That's
absolutely.
That's such an experience. So after the game was fantastic. I mean, you can't be buzzing more than winning your first game. So
the board comment is interesting. Harkening back to the St. Louis FC days where the boards were always contentious on being down there and is it allowed and everything. I had an interesting exchange. It was pretty funny where towards the end of the game, more and more kids were starting to get along the boards there near the supporter section, and they couldn't have been much taller than the boards themselves. So it's not like they were posing like a visibility risk to people in the stands. It was just they were that excited, and they were getting their friends up there, and it was just a thing. And Caleb Leone, the supporter group manager for the club, at one point was next to me, and he kind of looked over to him and he was like, "Is this okay?" And I was like, and I just look at him. I was like, the way this game's going with this energy and passion and what they're doing down there, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I thought that as they Stu's comment of all those kids and getting in line with the players, I was so excited to see the players come over, and they've done it in the preseason. What was it? It was either the Memphis or Lou City game where they started that over at Creve Coeur and Memphis.
Yeah.
And that to me is the ultimate show of appreciation. the St. Louis FC players were so perfect about doing that, and that's how you get the relationship between the players and the fans that we're craving, and I think would develop those lifelong fans that were made during St. Louis FC and were no doubt made Friday and will continue to be made even during times of loss, because you're going to have the supporters and the fans who hopefully continue to show up and support the players through the thick and the thin. But that, to me, it wasn't just the players either. It was the coaches came over, the staff. Lutz came over and thanked the fans. He was right behind the players as they were doing the handshake line, looking up at all of the supporters and the fans and just kind of like taking it all in and clapping at everybody. And that to me cemented it, that it was something that starts from the top, whether you're talking the captain, Josh Yarrow, leading him over, whether you're talking Lutz encouraging it and coming over himself, CKB's comments before and after the game that I heard in interviews, it all kind of says the same thing about how when they talk about being in the community, this is a part of that, and embracing the fans and kind of having that relationship. And it gave you the warm and fuzzies on Friday. I was in the front row watching the handshake line, and I was just in awe. Like, I was just like hanging against my wife, and I was just like taking it all in, because it was just so, I mean, I can close my eyes and just picture it again, because it was the perfect scene, seeing the players come over, hearing everybody still chanting and cheering, and it was everybody's win at that point.
Yeah. I think to close that out, I think I was really interested to see how the staff and the owner and Lutz and everyone responded to it. I was a little worried, and that's why I asked this early in the podcast. I was worried about all these new MLS fans and like, are they going to know when to cheer? Is this going to be like a really stale, gross game? Like, we know the Luligans are going to deliver, right? So I was a little worried about it, but it sounds like, hearing the response from all the new staff, from Lutz, seemed ecstatic about how it went, like Seebeck, like everyone, Caleb. It was really cool to see them really happy about how it went. And, I just kind of felt like this was like my baby that I get to like, I was hoping that's what would happen. Like, here's my St. Louis soccer baby. I know it's amazing. I'm biased. I think it's the most beautiful baby in the world, but I hope you'll like it too. And they didn't just like it. I think they were extremely happy at the end of that night. And that made me happy too. We want the staff at the club to feel like, we're akin, like we have the same frame of mind, that they like the things that we like. And, so far so good in that regard. Right. Which isn't something we should take for granted. But we've spent so much time on this game, and I think it deserved it. So I don't feel bad about this, but something else that deserves our time, we'll cut out everything except this. We're going to talk about this for the rest of the show, which isn't going to be much longer. The Futures program for St. Louis City. Futures program will be free and open to boys and girls between 7 to 14 years old, starting with 4 regional locations in 2022. This is one, hopefully small part of the whole. City wants to come in and make soccer less of a rich white guy thing, right? This is one of those directives that we're going to put toward fixing that problem. Sasha Bauer was appointed as the director of regional training and education that is going along with this. So, Matt, I haven't had time to do the proper research, but it sounds like you did. So why don't you kind of lead us into it before we talk about it?
I mean, at its core, you can see that the Futures program is the basis for which everything grows with City's structure. Starting at the top, you have MLS, and then City 2, and then the academy that goes from the U17s down to the U14s. It's no coincidence to me that the age range for City Futures goes from 7 to 14. I think that gap, more or less, has been bridged from when you first start playing team-based soccer when you're around 5 or so, at age 7 here on up to 14. And to make it free, to make it at Bayless High School, to start this whole thing, to make it gender neutral, boys and girls, because we've talked, and you hear a desire for city or anybody to bring NWSL to St. Louis. You want to get girls involved too. You want to make soccer inclusive and available. And this checks all of those boxes. And I just want to read really quick one of the paragraphs from the Futures program itself. It says the City Futures program has several layers: way to play sessions, free coaching education classes for local coaches, and monthly all region friendly tournaments starting in summer 2022. The way to play sessions last between 60 to 90 minutes, depending on age, and are free and accessible for boys and girls between 7 and 14 of all playing levels, from the first kick of the ball to club level players. The sessions will work on developing soccer specific skills as well as supporting character and personality development to better serve our players in sport and in life. All program participants will have the opportunity to compete in monthly friendly tournaments comprised of mixed teams from all city satellite locations. And that to me is everything, as we've always talked about wanting this to be a more inclusive sport in the area. We don't have time to get into the pay to play aspects of St. Louis soccer's history. This is the step towards eliminating that. And every good program has a first step. And yes, the slots of this are limited, and it will grow. But we're now seeing the foundation of availability, accessibility, and opportunity to kids to learn and develop a passion for soccer in St. Louis.
Any thoughts from you other guys?
Well, I was just looking. This comes off of the back of, I didn't see this before, but the city also partnered with the regional YMCA, which that got announced at the end of February. So they're not just approaching this from one angle. There's going to be, a few different angles. The community outreach of the club is fantastic. I love what they're doing, how they're making the game accessible, how they're, they've built one futsal court, and hopefully they'll build many other ones. Partnering with YMCA, you partner with City Futures program. It's all part about city wants to be part of the fabric of the region, and more than winning games, being active in the community is the way to do it. And whenever I think about how the Rams failed in St. Louis, I think about how there was no or not enough of a community aspect. Really, after Kroenke took over and a few years before that, they just killed off all of their community outreach, or at least what they did publicly. There were guys like Chris Long who did a ton, but that was on his own. But then you look at the Blues and the Cardinals, and they're everywhere in the community. They do so much. And I think City knows that even more than those teams do. It's even more of a civic project than a sporting one on that side of things. So it's City Futures program is a sporting outreach, but it's, to me, it's even more. It's a community and a civic outreach. So I'm really, really excited about that. And what it's going to lead to and where else they're going to go outside of Bayless.
Well, and Bauer's role too is essentially what you were talking about with the YMCA program, is to oversee that aspect as well. They said that in his role, he's going to be responsible for the creation of a holistic player development curriculum, coaches to coaches education, in cooperation with Missouri Youth Soccer Association, as well as working alongside Clea Collier, the VP of Community Relations. So kind of that sporting side of the community relations, and overseeing the recently announced partnership with the Gateway Region YMCA. So it's taking that under his wing. And I looked him up a little bit too, just to see kind of, because we've met him, Stu and myself, as part of the FX Council. He's been there, getting to know fans and being ingrained ahead of his announcement today. I did get to inform him of the Kickaroos program that Veta has in the area, which he thought was he got a huge kick out of. So that was an entertaining conversation. But he comes from Germany. He has a history. He's got a UEFA A license, first of all, which is impressive. but he has a history of a founder of Football for Worldwide Unity, just a instruction, youth coaching, referent. I mean, he has a pretty good resume that seems to slot him in very well to be productive with this, as opposed to just having somebody step into this without the sporting knowledge to back it up.
Santiago, any last thoughts before we kind of finish off today?
Yeah, very quick. Yeah, really excited about this announcement. Just thinking about a few months back when the team announced the U16 and U17 teams, and just thinking, okay, so these are players from other teams, not really a lot of new players that basically were not part of another team or an academy. But now seeing this is a step in the right direction, and it will be a pipeline for talent, and not only for the pipeline for talent, but only also for community development. But you kind of you can kind of combine those two things, and you'll be able to reach out to underserved communities. Offering this as a free program will ensure that the team includes anybody that wants to play soccer, and by increasing the amount of people you include, long term you will be able to find talent in places where you didn't have access to, or where you didn't have any programs at. So it's a step in the right direction. I really like it.
Yeah. And it feels like with this group that even if they're not from St. Louis, there's like a civic duty, not just like getting into the city, but it like feels like they feel like they should be doing this for the city just because they are here and investing in it. So that's my favorite part. I love it. And it is something I hope they will continue to grow, because it is such a challenge and such a problem. So great. We're gonna cut it off there. But I will say that not making the docket today, or getting off the docket to reality, some other things we were going to talk about was our signed players that haven't arrived yet: Ostrak, Pedro, Klaus, what they're up to. So maybe open up Transfermarkt and take a look at their last few games. What Nilsson is going to do now that we know Sweden did not make the World Cup either. So is he going to come to City 2? Is he officially going to sign? What's going to happen there? So we'll talk about that probably in the next episode. Stuart unearthed on Twitter this Generation Adidas Academy tournament that St. Louis City U17s will be a part of, that is now including Liga MX, which is like, that's something pretty exciting for me. I like the mix of the two leagues there. So good stuff. We'll try to get as much of that in either next week or 2 weeks from now at the worst. Other than that, I hope we'll be seeing you guys April 10th. Tacoma Defiance won 4-0 in the last one. This is a good system in Seattle. It's the Seattle Sounders system, if you didn't know already. 7:00 at Herman Stadium again. Hopefully we'll get close to selling it out. Hopefully it'll be a good game. And I hope
be a measuring stick matchup, I think.
Absolutely.
For the league.
Yeah, like that's an academy and club system that I wouldn't mind, taking on, trying to be as good as or better in the near future. Be a fun one. Good call there, Matt. All right, that's all we got, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be talking to you guys again soon.